The moment an avoidant starts loving you for real, the first thing you usually see is not confidence, it is disruption, it is contradiction, it is a glitch in the pattern. That is what confuses people. You think love is supposed to look smooth. You think if somebody cares, they move closer, stay closer, speak clearer, reassure faster, and make the whole thing easy to read. Sometimes they do. But sometimes the deeper the feeling, the stranger the behavior gets for a little while, because affection does not enter an avoidant nervous system like a poem. It enters like an alarm. And if you do not understand that, you will walk away at the exact moment their heart is finally trying to come out of hiding. Listen, I am not telling you to romanticize neglect. I am not telling you to excuse coldness, cruelty, mixed signals, lies, or games. I am not telling you to sacrifice your dignity on the altar of potential. That is not wisdom. That is self-abandonment dressed up as loyalty. What I am telling you is more precise than that. There is a difference between somebody who is uninterested and somebody who is overwhelmed. There is a difference between absence as indifference and distance as dysregulation. There is a difference between a person who does not care and a person who cares so much that caring threatens the identity they built to survive. That difference matters. Because if you miss it, you will call fear a lack of love. You will call confusion rejection. You will call a retreat proof. And proof is dangerous when your pain is doing the interpreting. Here is the truth. Most people do not understand avoidant behavior because they are looking only at behavior and not at the system underneath it. They see a late reply, a shutdown, a pullback after intimacy, a weird flatness after a beautiful weekend, a sudden hunger for space after closeness, and they stamp it with one verdict. They do not care. Sometimes that verdict is right. Sometimes it is dead wrong. Because an avoidant person can want you deeply and still move away from you in the very moment they feel the depth of that wanting. Not because the love is fake. Because the exposure is real. That is the part you have to understand if you want to stop making tragic decisions in emotional fog. An avoidant does not fear love the way people say it in casual conversation. They do not usually fear the sweet parts. They fear what love seems to demand. Dependence, need, loss of control, the risk of being known and then disappointed, the terror of being cherished and then trapped, the possibility that if they lean, really lean, the floor gives way. So when the bond starts becoming meaningful, their system starts running an ancient equation. Closeness equals danger, need equals weakness, exposure equals loss. And then the body does what bodies do when they believe danger is near. It protects first. It interprets later. That is why the shift matters. Because before an avoidant loves you, distance is simple. After they love you, distance gets noisy. Now what do I mean by that? I mean the pattern changes. The withdrawal has static in it. There is hesitation in it. Tenderness leaks through it. They still move away, but not with the clean finality of somebody who is done. They circle back. They watch. They check in with something small. They ask a practical question that has nothing to do with the practical thing. They remember details they would not remember if you meant nothing. They soften after conflict instead of hardening forever. They become awkward in places where they used to be smooth. They may even get irritable, not because they feel nothing, but because they feel more than they know how to organize. That is the glitch. It is when the old machinery still runs, but it no longer runs clean. A person who does not love you can disappear with efficiency. A person who is fighting love often disappears with friction. And that friction is not always visible if all you are measuring is comfort. Think about a smoke alarm in a kitchen. The alarm is not proof the house is burning down. Sometimes it is reacting to heat in a room where nourishment is being made. The system does not know the difference between danger and intensity. It only knows activation. Now, if every time the alarm goes off, you run out of the house screaming that dinner is impossible, you never learn what is happening. But if you stand there and understand the mechanism, suddenly you are less hypnotized by the sound. That is what is happening here. Their system hears heat and calls it threat. You hear distance and call it rejection. Both of you are reacting to a signal. Neither of you is automatically reading the truth. That is why mature love is not just chemistry. It is interpretation. It is pattern recognition. It is the discipline to ask, what is this moment actually telling me? Versus what is my wound trying to make it mean? Because the meaning you assign becomes the action you take. and the action you take becomes the future you create. A lot of people lose good love, not because there was no love there, but because the first surge of fear got mistaken for the final verdict. And I want you to see this. An avoidant who is starting to love you often becomes less polished, not more. They may become less strategic, less charming, less effortlessly detached. Why? Because detachment is easy when nothing important is at risk. The moment you matter, the old coolness starts breaking apart. You may see more contradiction, more start-stop energy, more tenderness followed by retreat, more honesty followed by silence. The mask slips, the control slips. And what slips out is not always romance. Sometimes it is clumsiness, sometimes it is confusion, sometimes it is the raw, scared animal underneath the adult personality. That does not mean you rush in and save them. It means you stop being naive. Real closeness does not only bring affection to the surface, it brings unfinished survival strategies to the surface too. A person can crave connection and still brace against it. A person can miss you and still not know how to receive you. A person can love you and still act in ways that make you feel alone. All of that can be true at once, and that is why relationships break people open, not because love is weak, but because love exposes whatever was never healed. Now let me be honest with you. Some of you listening have been hurt so many times that the moment you feel inconsistency, you are gone. You call it standards. Sometimes it is standards. Sometimes it is self-protection so fast and total that nothing human can survive contact with it. You are not just screening for health. You are screening for the absence of all difficulty. And there is no relationship on earth where that standard can be met. Then there are others of you doing the opposite. You excuse everything. You shrink your needs. You become an interpreter, a therapist, a spiritual hostage. You live on crumbs and call it patience. That is not love either. That is fear of loss making you negotiate against yourself. So what is the middle path? It is this. Learn to read the shift without betraying yourself to read it. That is the work. Because the glitch is not a green light to abandon your boundaries. It is an invitation to stop using only black and white intelligence in a territory built of nervous systems, memory, longing, shame, and hope. If you want a picture, think of a deer that has lived near gunfire. The first time it comes close to your hand, it is not going to stand there like a golden retriever. It will step in and flinch back. Step in and freeze. Come close enough to smell safety and then bolt, because safety itself feels unfamiliar. Now if you chase it, you prove the fear. If you punish it, you confirm the danger. If you collapse at its feet, begging it to stay, you create pressure it cannot metabolize. But if you remain steady, clear, and non-predatory, something changes. Not instantly, not magically. But the body starts learning a new truth. This is why your state matters so much. If you are attached to immediate certainty, you will make a mess of this. If you need instant reassurance to regulate yourself, you will press when space is needed, panic when patience is needed, and disappear when steadiness is needed. You will turn every moment into a referendum on your worth, and the relationship will drown under meanings neither of you examined. So what do? You watch for movement, not perfection. You watch for congruence over time, not one dramatic moment. You watch whether the person returns to the connection with greater honesty, or whether they simply reset the same cycle with new packaging. That distinction will save you years. Because the glitch is not just that they pull away. The glitch is that something in the pull is different. There is less arrogance in it, less dismissal, less contempt, more conflict in them, more awareness. Sometimes they start naming what is happening, even if they do it badly. They say things like, I do not know why I shut down. I hate that I do this. I need space, but I do not want to lose this. I am trying. I get scared when it gets real. I care about you, and that makes me want to run. Those sentences matter, not because words are enough. Words are never enough. They matter because awareness is the crack where a new future can enter. No awareness, no opening. No opening, no building. No building, no relationship. It is that simple. And still, simple is not the same as easy. You want to know why this is so hard? Because when somebody pulls away, it does not just touch the present. It touches your archive. It touches every moment you were not chosen, not understood, not pursued, not protected. It wakes up the old courtroom in your mind. Here we go again. Same story, same ending, same proof. And once your old pain becomes the judge, every new piece of data gets forced to testify in favor of the past. That is why your reaction can become bigger than the moment. It is not just this text message. It is every text message. It is not just this silence. It is every silence. It is not just this person. It is every person who ever made you feel uncertain and small. And once that machine starts, you do not respond to reality. You respond to accumulated meaning. That is why self-awareness is not a luxury here. It is oxygen. You need enough space inside yourself to ask, is this my intuition speaking, or is this my history grabbing the microphone? Because intuition is calm. Trauma is urgent. Intuition clarifies. Fear floods. And if you do not know the difference, you will treat every activated moment as revelation. It is not revelation. Sometimes it is just activation. Again, that does not mean you ignore red flags. It means you stop turning every yellow light into destiny. I have watched this happen again and again. The moment somebody starts mattering, the human system gets exposed. One person reaches, the other braces. One person seeks reassurance, the other seeks room. One feels abandoned, the other feels invaded. And both of them are convinced their reaction is the sane one. That is why love without understanding becomes a battlefield of good intentions and old defenses. But here is the thing, the shift you are looking for in an avoidant is not grand romance. It is increased cost. The pattern starts costing them too. That is a big deal. Before love, withdrawal protects them and feels efficient. After love, withdrawal still protects them, but it also hurts them. They miss you while doing the very thing they think will keep them safe. They feel relief and grief in the same motion. They tell themselves they need distance and then feel the emptiness of the distance they created. That inner conflict is often the first honest sign that the bond matters. The question is whether they use that pain to grow or whether they use it to justify more hiding. That is the line. Because pain by itself changes nobody. Pain only changes people when it becomes information instead of identity. An avoidant who begins to say, "This pattern is protecting me and costing me," is standing at the edge of transformation. An avoidant who says, "This is just who I am, deal with it," is not at the edge of transformation. They are at the edge of your patience. Know the difference. And do not confuse compassion with a lack of standards. You can understand a wound and still refuse to live inside its blast radius. You can love someone and still require effort. You can see the glitch and still decide the cost is too high. You are allowed. This is not about becoming endlessly available. It is about becoming clear enough to stop making blind decisions. There is an image I want to give you. Imagine a person who has spent years living in a house where every floorboard creaks because once upon a time the roof came down. Maybe it happened in childhood. Maybe it happened in their first marriage. Maybe it happened in the one relationship they never thought they would lose. However it happened, the body learned that intimacy is structural risk. So now, even when the weather is beautiful, they listen for collapse. They do not walk across the room freely. They test. They pause. They sleep light. They keep one shoe on emotionally. And then you show up, warm and sincere, saying, "Come outside, it is safe now." But the nervous system does not move because of your argument. It moves because repeated reality slowly teaches what words alone cannot. That takes time, and it takes consistency, and it takes enormous discernment, because some people really are just unavailable, and they will gladly let you build a cathedral around a closed door. So what tells you there is love here instead of just limitation. Watch what happens after rupture. That is where the truth lives. Anybody can be sweet in the easy moments. Anybody can be attentive when nothing vulnerable has happened yet. Anybody can mirror language from social media and sound evolved for 90 minutes. But rupture reveals architecture. After conflict, after closeness, after misunderstanding, after fear, what do? Do they move toward repair, even awkwardly? Do they reflect? Do they come back? Do they own anything? Do they make room for your experience, or do they make your pain an inconvenience they need to escape? That is where you stop fantasizing and start seeing. Love is not proven by intensity in the high. It is proven by responsibility in the hard. Now listen to me carefully. There is a passage here that many of you need, and I want to slow down enough for you to feel it. If you are avoidant yourself, or if you love someone who is, behind a lot of that distance, there is often an old child who learned something brutal too early. Learned that needing was expensive. Learned that softness invited disappointment. Learned that being fully seen did not always lead to care. Learned that the safest way to survive was to become low maintenance, self-contained, impossible to pin down, impossible to need. And if that was you, I want you to hear this without flinching. What helped you survive may now be starving what you most want. The wall was intelligent once. It was not madness. It was brilliance under pressure. It was adaptation. It was your body saying, if nobody is coming, become your own shelter. If closeness is unstable, become difficult to reach. If your heart is not safely held, hide the part that breaks. That strategy deserves respect. But survival wisdom can become adult loneliness when it is never updated. And the very thing that once protected your life can quietly prevent you from living it. Do you hear the difference? You were not broken when you built the wall. You were resourceful. You were not weak when you stopped needing. You were surviving. You were not unloving when you went numb. You were preserving something tender from environments that did not know how to handle tenderness. But now you are older. Now you have choices. Now you can ask whether the shelter has become a prison. And if you are the one loving a person like this, your task is not to drag them out. Your task is to see clearly whether they are beginning to see the prison too. That is the sign. Not flawless behavior, not instant intimacy, awareness, ownership, effort, return. Without those you will bleed trying to translate somebody who is committed to remaining unreadable. With those, there may be something real enough to build. I believe this. Some of the strongest people you will ever meet are not the ones who never shut down. They are the ones who started out defended, frozen, armored, hard to reach, and then chose slowly and deliberately to become reachable anyway. That is courage, not the performance of closeness, the practice of it. Not saying I am fine, saying I am scared and I do not want to hide from this anymore. That is courage. And if you see that in an avoidant, even in small doses, do not dismiss it because it is not packaged in the form you expected. For some people, a simple, honest sentence is a bigger act of love than flowers, trips, speeches, or perfect chemistry. For some people, staying in the room during discomfort is the equivalent of climbing a mountain. For some people, sending the message after every part of them wants to disappear is an act of devotion you can only understand if you know the war happening inside their chest. Still, and this matters, effort must become behavior, not eventually, not in theory, in reality. Awareness without action becomes poetry. Action is what creates safety. So if you see the glitch, here is the practical drill I want you to use in the next 24 hours. It will take less than 90 seconds, and it may change the emotional climate completely. The next time you feel the impulse to chase, accuse, threaten to leave, or force clarity in the heat of their withdrawal, stop. Put both feet on the ground. Exhale longer than you inhale for 5 slow breaths. Then send one clean sentence, not a paragraph, not a case, not a performance, one clean sentence. Something like, I care about this connection, and I want to talk when we are both steady. Or, I am here, and I am not going to attack you, but I do need honesty. Or, take the space you need tonight, and let's reconnect tomorrow with clarity. That is it. Why that sentence? Because it does 3 things at once. It regulates you, it lowers threat, and it protects your standards. You are not abandoning yourself. You are not abandoning them. You are refusing to let panic become policy. That is power, not control. Power. Control grabs. Power steadies. Control tries to force the bridge. Power becomes strong enough to cross it cleanly. And if they come back into that space with sincerity, with accountability, with willingness, now you have something to work with. Not certainty, but something real. If they use the space as another escape hatch, another way to keep you emotionally floating while they remain unaccountable, now you also have information. Different information, but information. Either way, steadiness gives you sight. Emotion without sight is how people repeat hell and call it hope. So what is the real test here? Not whether they are avoidant, not whether you are anxious, not whether the chemistry is wild. The real test is this. Can 2 people tell the truth faster than their patterns can lie? That is the relationship. Can you speak what is happening before the nervous system turns it into theater? Can they admit fear before it becomes distance? Can you ask for what you need without making the request a weapon? Can they take space without making space an erasure? Can both of you stop worshiping your old survival strategies long enough to create a new experience? That is the work of love. And it is sacred work, even if it looks clumsy. Because what is healing really? It is not becoming impressive. It is becoming honest enough and safe enough that your body no longer has to protect you from the very thing your soul has been asking for. That is healing. A lot of you are waiting for a grand sign, a speech, a confession, a cinematic turnaround where the avoidant finally says everything perfectly, cries at the right moment, and proves beyond doubt that they are all in. It can happen. Sometimes life gives you a clean scene. Most of the time, it does not. Most of the time, love announces itself in subtler ways. In the person who comes back after shutting down and says, "I know that hurt you." In the person who does not run quite as far as they used to. In the person who stays one more minute in the hard conversation. In the person who lets you see the fear instead of only the armor. In the person who tells the truth before they know how to fix it. Those are not small things. To the untrained eye, they look ordinary. To somebody who understands patterns, they are seismic, because the old script is cracking. And when an old script cracks, that is when people become reachable. Now let me be clear. You are not here to become a rehabilitation center for someone who refuses to participate in their own healing. Love is a meeting, not a rescue. Mutuality matters. If you are the only one reflecting, the only one reaching, the only one repairing, the only one studying the pattern, the only one calming the chaos, then you are not building intimacy. You are carrying a system by yourself. Do not do that. A bridge needs support from both sides. And I know that line may hurt, especially if you have been trying so hard to be understanding that you forgot to be truthful. But truth is mercy when you tell it in time. If you are always hurting and they are always hiding, that is not depth, that is repetition. If they keep returning but never growing, that is not love maturing. That is a cycle feeding on your hope. If they feel deeply but act irresponsibly forever, the depth is not enough. Love has to become usable. Usable in conflict, usable in uncertainty, usable on a Tuesday night when both of you are tired and nobody feels poetic. That is where real relationship lives. Not in the fantasy, in the nervous system, in the habit, in the repair, in the return. So if you see this shift, do not walk away just because it does not look polished. Pause long enough to see it accurately. But do not stay just because you can explain it beautifully either. Explanation is not transformation. Insight is not intimacy. Potential is not partnership. You need all three truths in your hands at once. There may be fear here, there may be love here, and there still must be effort here. All three. You, my friend, deserve more than intensity without safety. You deserve more than chemistry without consistency. You deserve more than being chosen in secret but not loved in practice. And if the person in front of you is truly beginning to love you, then over time, that love will become more visible in the places that count. Not perfect, more responsible. Not flawless, more honest. Not dramatic, more steady. That is how you know the heart is not just feeling, it is growing. And if you are the avoidant one listening right now, let me say one thing to you with all the respect in the world. The move is not to become somebody else overnight. The move is to stop worshiping distance as if it is the only thing that ever kept you safe. It kept you safe once. I honor that. But if someone good is in front of you now, someone clear, someone grounded, someone who is not trying to own you, then the bravest thing you may ever do is stay one breath longer than your fear prefers. Answer one question more honestly than usual. Name the shutdown before it takes over. Come back 1 hour sooner. Tell the truth before the silence becomes a story. That is how trust gets built. Not by force, by repetitions of truth, small brave repetitions. And one day, the thing that used to feel like a threat starts to feel like home. Not because home became less real, but because your body finally learned it no longer has to fight the hand that is trying to hold it gently. That is the real miracle, not that love appeared, that you could receive it. So if you see the glitch, slow down enough to read it. Do not glorify it. Do not fear it. Read it. Look for awareness. Look for return. Look for effort. Look for responsibility after rupture. Look for whether the old pattern is being defended or outgrown. And then choose with your eyes open, not just with your hunger. Because love is not proven by how powerfully someone feels in private. It is proven by what they are willing to practice in relationship. And if that practice is beginning, if the armor is cracking, if the person is becoming honest in the places where they used to disappear, then no, do not walk away too quickly. But but never walk away from yourself to stay. That is the line. That is the wisdom. And that is the difference between saving a connection and losing your soul inside one. In the end, the question is not whether love exists. The question is whether the people involved are brave enough to let love change their pattern. If the answer is yes, stay steady. If the answer is no, bless it and keep your life moving. But if the answer is yes, if you can feel the old machinery shaking and something truer trying to emerge, then honor that sacred little crack in the wall. Sometimes that is exactly where the light gets in, and sometimes the heart does not come out of hiding all at once. Sometimes it glitches first,